Viv is here and Jeanette is here and everybody else. You're all very, very welcome to this webinar. So yes, we're going to try and kill the overwhelm because we have seen it. Like the questions that we have been getting in from you guys is, oh my God, how do I do this? And what am I going to do? And do you know what? This is not just from beginner florists. This is from experienced florists who are such a, how many wreaths am I going to get out of that? So we're just going to try and get as many of your questions answered as possible. But first and foremost, I'm just going to letting people in as we're talking. First and foremost, I want to welcome Viv and thank you so much, Viv, for giving up your time for coming in to chat with us.
You're very welcome. It's always lovely to talk to you, ladies. You know that.
And those of you that don't know Viv, Viv is AKA the Floristry Geek, and she runs the Floristry Geek group over on Facebook, which I'm sure a lot of you are members of. And if you're not, why aren't you? Now, the Floristry Geek is only for students, floristry students in training or florists already trained.
Yeah.
It's not for hobby florists. And Viv is, she dies on the block of training.
I will die on that hill.
But so yes, I'm gonna actually just hang on a second. I'm gonna just mute there. Perfect. So yeah, but before we start, Viv, you have some really good news for us, not Christmas related. Tell us what you are just about to launch now.
So I have finally finished my next Bible. So my next Bible is here, and this is the Floristry Geek Cake Flower Bible. So everything you need to know about putting fresh flowers on food. So it gives you a list of edible, non-toxic and contact safe and toxic flowers, and exactly how you should treat your flowers before they go on a cake. It also explains the legal responsibilities, who's actually responsible, and there's also a template in there for you to keep records of which wholesaler you got the flowers from, what sundries you've used, which grower it was. The FSA were going to bring in lots of new guidelines, but they've actually shelved it for now. But I think as professionals, we need to start thinking that it will probably come in at some point in the near future. So if we get into best practice now, it's going to make that transition so much easier for us. So it goes live tonight, and it's £7.50. So it's a wee cheap stocking filler.
It certainly is. And you know what? Even though it is based on UK guidelines, look at the guidelines are the same more or less across the board. So, and I actually got a sneaky peek of it on Monday or Tuesday that you sent it on to me. And I say I was very impressed. And I loved that you had the record, that you could actually keep a record of what you used. It's a bit like the other Bibles. She tells you when it's in season, when it's not in season, what color it is. So if you have a bride and she wants orange flowers on the cake, you can look up what orange flowers and they're what's available in January in orange, and it's there for you. So it's absolutely, it's an amazing resource to have along with all the other resources. And I know a lot of our past students and our present students have bought a lot of Viv's resources. They're simple to the point, they're easy to go back. Leonie saying she could see it coming here. Absolutely. And you know what's happening here, and we've seen it, is that people are just sticking flowers into cakes as well, you know, instead of actually sitting them on cakes. That's another story. That is another webinar, not for tonight. But Viv, mrsbees Flowers Company is .co.uk is the website. And anyone that, Jeanette, you might maybe, if you can, put that into the chat, and the Viv's website, it'll be in the chat, or just drop us a message later on, or do you know what, go up to the Floristry Geek and drop her a message.
Give me a shout and I'll put it in there.
And she'll look after you. But really, we're here tonight to talk about Christmas. And I have a list of questions, but what I'm asking you guys in the chat is, and we will open up the floor later on as well to Q&As, if you've any questions, Jeanette's going to be taking note of the questions in the chat, so put them into the chat. I can see Sue Whale is coming in. Put your questions into the chat and let us, and we will get back to them as well. Sue, we just see you coming in there. You're very welcome in this evening, and we will look for your input too. We'd really appreciate it too. So I'm just going to go through some of the questions, Viv, that have come in. And then we'll follow on from there. Okay, moss. The amount of questions around moss, and first of all, it's very hard to get moss in Ireland, but we have so many UK students as well, or florists, not just, I keep saying students, but a lot of these are florists that are actually working and are selling for Christmas. First of all, how far in advance would you moss your bases, and how far in advance do you recommend to green up your bases?
My bases are mossed now and have been for a week or two, just sitting outside on the patio table. If it gets if we've got really heavy rain forecast, then I'll cover them. But other than that, they just sit outside. They're fine. And I'm actually using moss that's a year old. So I had a bag of moss left from last Christmas, and I took it out of the bag, spread it out, wet it, and it's fine. It's as green as anything.
Perfect. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
don't waste it. Just put it to
Just
one
go ahead.
side. You can
And
still use it.
Madeline's saying it's hard to get hard to get moss in Ireland. Call on down to me. So wherever Madeline is, there's obviously loads of moss. Put your address up in the chat, Madeline. We'll all be down for moss. It is actually very hard to buy moss in Ireland, and we don't have any moss farms. Where in the UK
Right.
there is moss
Yeah,
farms that
there are moss
actually
farms here.
commercially
Yeah.
grow the moss. If buying wreath basis, and again, how far in advance? Now, just I'm going to say to you is Viv has over 30 years experience in retail and obviously has done a lot of Christmases. So this is
I've
why we
done a
got
lot
her
of
in as well
Christmases.
for to talk to us about this type of thing. So Viv, wreath bases. So like we see the wholesalers are selling them all at the moment, the ready-made ones. How far in advance are you saying that we should be buying them?
If they're ready made, I'd leave them till next week. If you're greening yourself, you can start greening up tomorrow, which is my weekend job.
Okay.
So I have 60 bases done, mossed, and they'll be greened up over the weekend.
Okay. And we actually don't. I'm just sorry. I'm letting people in and trying to sort at the same time. I'm going to just get Rob to mute his mic there because he just keeps coming in. Hang on a second. I just find him. If you're not on mute, if you can mute your mic, because it just makes it easier for us. Somebody says last year I gave too many options, and I actually think this is because it's something we've covered on our Christmas program. I gave too many options. I had loads of work. So in other words, she offered too many colours in Christmas wreaths, too many colours in flower arrangements, too many colours in all of that. How do you pull that back, Viv? How do you decide what are you going to
You
offer?
rule your customers with a rod of iron. So you make the choices because it's your business. And I think I've got 5 different wreath choices this year. So there's a peacock wreath, there's a pheasant feather and shotgun cartridge wreath, there's a traditional one with dried flowers. I have a Scandi one, which is hessian and oranges and twigs. And then there's like a silvery white one. That's it. They're the 5 I do. Pick from those.
Okay.
Occasionally people will say, can I have a different coloured ribbon? And I'm happy to do that if I've got it. But I can do upward of 100 wreaths over Christmas. So I've got to take quite strong control over that, because otherwise there's too much to think about, and that's when mistakes get made, and there is only me. So yeah, I kind of do that, and I introduce a new wreath every year and then take one out, kind of thing. Apart from the pheasant, the peacock and the traditional, they sit every year, and then I change the other 2 around. But it's okay to not offer them everything. It's fine.
Yeah, I think that's really good advice. I really do think the more you offer, first of all, the more stock you have to buy in to cover those wreaths.
Yeah.
And really the more stock, besides something that's maybe red you can use for Valentine's Day, there's very little at Christmas that you'll have to carry it over to next year, which means that your stock is sitting there. So I think having your basics, to offer is really, really the best financial way to do it.
And sometimes you can confuse your own customers by giving them too much choice, because they don't know the way we know it. So sometimes it's like when they phone up and you say, and they want to order a bouquet, and you say, how much do you want to spend? Why do we do that? Why do we say, how much do you want to spend? Because they're going to want to spend as least as they can. So, you've got to say to them, these are my prices. These are my wreaths. This is how it's working for me.
And that was a question as well, which is coming up later on, but I'm going to ask you now when you talk about prices, is somebody says that people is looking for cheap. Yeah. They're looking for bargains. They're looking with Black Friday coming up. They're looking for bargains. How do you cope with that? And I know, right, you're tough skin now because you're so long in the industry, but for somebody starting out that feels a little bit of imposter syndrome and don't feel that they're good enough or that their wreaths are good enough, and somebody says, oh, well, it's cheaper in Tesco's. How do you cope with that?
Go to Tesco's. I do
It's
literally
Tesco.
say I can't compete with that, then go to Tesco's. But
Yeah,
if you want something handmade, bespoke, artisan, use all the fancy zhuzhy words. And then,
yeah,
nobody wants to be seen as being cheap either at Christmas. They might want a cheap price, but they don't want the recipient to think they've been cheap. So a lot of it is about cleverly disguising it as a budget option, but still looking good. So this year I've done a duo of bud vases, which will use up my broken stems for a start. And my little snippings of greenery. And it's 20 quid. They've got two vases to keep, and that's the way I sell it. It'll look beautiful over Christmas, but then they've got the little vases to keep, and they can pop a few flowers from their garden. It's about selling that idea to them. You
yeah,
also find at Christmas you'll get lots of people who'll come to you as a florist because what they've ordered hasn't arrived in time. So you need something to be a stopgap that's not going to be too expensive because the other present is coming, but obviously they want something to give. So that's when I use things like um, nice flowering Christmassy plants in a pot, that kind of thing, bulbs. So make sure you've got those kind of things that you can offer. With the bulbs, if they don't sell, I put them in my garden. It doesn't really matter. It's a win-win for
yeah,
me. But you've got
yeah,
to think through, why are people coming to you to buy at Christmas, and what can you offer them that is going to be part of your brand, because you don't want to be seen as the cheap florist, because if you paint yourself into that corner it's really hard to get out of it, but isn't going to frighten customers away. So it's about having
yeah,
a range of, so I think my prices this year, my cheapest thing on my website is the flowering plant, and it's not big, it's a little tiny cyclamen or a Christmas cactus, or and don't be specific, just say a flowering plant. Varieties will change, because then
yeah.
you don't, if it's Christmas Eve and you've got to dash out to Tesco's and get one, you don't want to then have to be going around 6 supermarkets to find a particular plant. So it's also about being clever for yourself. And I
And I
think
really,
that's 15 quid.
yeah, that's really clever, and I think it really is. And I know I was on in a webinar there last week, and we were talking about the same thing: is not holding yourself to a specific thing. It's like a florist choice. It's
Yeah.
it's a flowering plant. It's not a specific plant, rather than, yeah, I think that's a really good idea. So back to then, you were talking about we were talking about varieties and offering how many. So we say you have five wreaths. What other, so coming away from wreaths, sorry, I'm just going to let people in. Coming away from wreaths, then how many other flower arrangement offerings or stuff do you have?
I have a Christmas arrangement with, like a candle arrangement for the table, in two different colours. Um, so there's a Christmas spice one. Well, what colour's Christmas spice? It's any colour you want it to be, really, isn't it? So I tend to use the oranges and a bit of burgundies in that one, but then that means I don't have to have lots and lots of the expensive wood.
Yeah.
I can, zhuzh it up with
What's
other
that?
colours. And then I have like a wintry white one.
Right.
I
Look what cheese toasty is on.
do
Sorry, I'm just
bouquets.
gonna
Merry Christmas.
Dawn Matthews, can I ask you to mute your mic? I can't
Oh,
find you on the screen, and it's, if you can hear us, to mute your mic, we'd appreciate it. Sorry, Viv, go ahead.
And then I've got two bouquet options, and again they're quite kind of subtle in the way they're described, so that I've got room to tweak. But I am thinking I might do a dual coloured one, which I haven't put up there yet. But I think again it's trying to stay away from the reds and the whites, which are really, really expensive.
Expensive.
So I
Yeah,
try to mix the other colours in and
yeah.
just have a touch of those other ones, and lots
Yeah.
of
And I think by advertising yourself as being different, that we are not going to do the traditional
yeah,
reds. But if you are going to go down the red route, you're going to have to charge for it. You're going to
yeah,
have
you really
to.
are.
And I really do think, like, we were buying flowers and sundries there last week, and we're like, oh my God, like the prices are just,
Yeah,
every week they're going up and up. And guys, you really need to be watching your costs.
yeah,
Like, what something cost you last Christmas, it's definitely up 30-40%, if
yeah,
not
it is.
more, this
Yeah.
Christmas. So you
And
really need to be looking at,
I think the checks at the border that DEFRA have brought in for stuff coming into the UK, that is definitely having a knock-on effect for us, both in prices but also in time scales. So be careful with your deliveries. go for a day earlier than you think you need it, because I know this week there's been lots of wholesalers have had up to 12-hour hold-ups.
Okay, wow.
Yeah, crazy.
So I'm just trying to mute people here as we're hearing them disturb it. Perfect. Yeah. So again, back to, so we say your Christmas arrangements. So these are the ones, Viv, that have flowers in them.
Yeah.
When should you be putting those in? Like we say, they're looking for delivery Christmas Eve, the day before Christmas Eve. Actually, I'm not even sure what day Christmas falls on this year. What does it fall on? You probably know.
Wednesday. My birthday's the Monday, so it's a Wednesday. There you go.
So
I'm a
Wednesday.
Christmas baby.
So probably that weekend is when people are going to be getting their deliveries out.
Yeah.
So when would be there, or when do they need to be getting those flowers in?
I tend to order. So for that week, I would have, I mean, you will find that the wholesalers, certainly in the UK, will be doing Sunday deliveries that week. But depending on what you pick, obviously, it's colder this time of the year, so it's a bit easier. I would say my last delivery will probably be on the Saturday, my last big delivery, because then if I need to do a top up on the Monday, Tuesday, I still can do.
Still can't do it from your
Yeah, it's a
local
bit
wholesaler
different for
or
you
whatever.
guys in Ireland because you don't have quite as many delivery days from Holland as we do. So it's a bit harder for
I think
you.
we're 5, 6 days. I think we
Well,
have
that's not
six.
so bad then.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. But we probably wouldn't have the selection of
yeah,
local wholesalers
yeah,
around the country. In Dublin, we do, but around the country. So for
yeah,
anyone that's outside Dublin or far from a local wholesaler, that's where you need to be
yeah.
watching your deliveries. What would you be looking at as long-lasting flowers in your Christmas arrangements? So like they're going into, like, what
Yeah.
are you recommending?
Amaryllis always.
Yeah.
And amaryllis you can dry store. So you, so long as you keep the boxes flat, you can dry store them, so they don't actually have to go into water.
Oh, I
And
didn't realize that.
you can get away with that for 4 or 5 days, without it
Okay.
affecting them. So yeah. And thistles I use a lot of because again they're long lasting. Carnations, chrysanths, but I like the blooms. Not I don't mind Santini. Um, you get a lot of the glittered stuff at Christmas, like the brassica and things like that. But actually, I'm really tight, so I glitter my own. So if you
Okay.
mix 2 parts of kids PVA glue with 2 parts of water in a spray bottle, spray it on, you can sprinkle glitter over the top and it'll stay. I think the iridescent glitter is better than the gold or the silver. So I go for like the pearl coloured one. But I glitter tanacetum and brassicas and gyp and white chrysanths and all sorts of things because it's so
Okay.
much cheaper to do it yourself than buy it ready glittered. It takes 2
Yeah.
minutes. You do end
Yeah.
up looking a
That
bit like
doesn't.
Tinkerbell, but hey, it's Christmas. It
I
doesn't
feel
matter.
like that's Christmas,
Yeah,
isn't it? Yeah, like
absolutely.
already, because we
Yeah,
started our Christmas workshops yesterday and like already there's glitter everywhere.
yeah,
But that's actually really good as well. Like if you don't want to buy a full wrap of gyp for that's
yeah,
glittered, or a full wrap
yeah,
of eucalyptus or whatever the case may be.
yeah.
That's a great tip. So what was the proportions again?
So it's 2 parts children's PVA. So like the stuff we used to put on our hands and peel off at school, that
Yeah,
stuff, the white stuff. 2 parts of that, 2 parts warm water. Put it in a spray bottle, give it a good shake. The only thing you need to do is you need to wash the nozzle out once you finish spraying it, because otherwise it will get a bit sticky. But if
yeah.
you just give it a good wash out in hot water before you put it away for the day, it's fine.
Oh, great advice. Thank you for that. Somebody says that they're actually booking more wreath workshops than that they're selling wreaths.
Yeah.
And are you finding that
I've heard
also?
that from a lot of florists this year. I mean, I haven't taught for a wreath workshop for probably 15 years, but I've got 2 this year,
Yeah.
because they obviously caught me in a weak moment and I agreed. But yeah, I think people are wanting that whole experience, not just the wreath. So I think,
Yeah.
and actually for a florist, it's a good way of making a good chunk of money without having to make, 10 wreaths or
Yeah.
whatever. So, it does make
Absolutely.
sense
And
to do it.
we did one yesterday, and I have to say they were very minimalist. Like we actually had way too much in their kits for what they used.
Yeah.
But they were happy to throw it all back into the box afterwards. So it'll go back into another
Yeah.
wreath workshop. I think giving a choice of bows and stuff like that is a great option. We use ready-made wreaths for our wreath workshops, and we add eucalyptus to them or
Yeah.
whatever foliage is around. What's your opinion on that? Do you prefer to let them moss and make it from scratch, or
I don't let them moss because they make too much mess. So I moss and they get a mossed base and then they
Yeah.
get the foliage to use. And I do give them a good selection. But I think with me, because I don't do too many, I can do that.
Yeah.
So it's easier for me to just do it that way. But
Do
I've
it
got
that
no
way. Yeah.
problem with people having ready-made wreaths and decorating them. And I think particularly for corporate, where you're expected to do a big amount of people in one, it does allow you to do more people in one class than you could ever do if you were teaching them how to bind the bundles on and things like that.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, this is a question that comes in all the time. It's like, how long is a piece of string? How many wreaths do you get out of a bunch of spruce?
Mm. How long is a piece of spring? It depends really, because it depends whether you're, going to do just spruce, whether you're mixing it with 3 foliages, 7 foliages. It's very hard to say. I would say from a bundle of 10 stems of spruce, I would get with mixed foliages somewhere around 8 reeds. But obviously, if
Right.
you're using all spruce, you'll probably only get half that.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. So, and it is, and also then sometimes 10 stems from one wholesaler is not the same as 10 stems from another
Nope,
wholesaler.
not at all.
And also sometimes not every bit of the is
No, you get different
suitable
sizes.
to go into a wreath,
Yeah.
is what I'm
You
saying.
don't
Like
know
you couldn't use all the
how
fingers.
many fingers you're going to be able to cut off, because that's technically what they're called. There you go. They're called fingers. So you don't know how many fingers you're going to get to cut off each branch.
Yeah.
So you can't say really, and I
Yeah.
know we'd all love the perfect answer to that every year because we all either overbuy or underbuy, but there isn't one. Sorry.
There is, yeah, taking the chance. And then out of a bag of moss, how many moss frames would you get?
Yeah, I get 20 out of a bag of
Okay.
moss. But obviously, I've been doing this a long time, so I think I've now got muscle memory just to know how much it is, in my hand and make it work. But I
Yeah,
would say the average would be between 10 and 15.
I would say so too. Yeah, yeah. And here's the next one, and I don't know if you know the answer, but I actually do know the answer to this one.
Oh,
How many wreaths do you get out of a 10 kilo bag of cones?
oh,
Putting
don't
about
know, but
eight
you do. Go
cones,
on, you tell me.
putting about 8 cones into each wreath. So there's you'll get about 60 to 70 wreaths. So there's about
At 10
530
kilos.
cones in a
Wow.
10 kilo bag. So,
Well done,
and the
you.
reason
See,
we
I've
know,
learned something. That's
there
great.
you go. And the reason we know this, Viv, is because Jeanette has been making up kits for our
Yeah.
wreath workshops for the last week, and we put 8 cones into the bag, so we knew how many exactly we got out of a bag of cones. So put that into your notes, because it is a
Yeah.
question next year you're going to ask yourself, how many
Mm.
cones is in a bag? And I can see there's loads of questions coming in, and we will get to those questions, I promise. At the end, we're just going to go through some of the stuff here, and then we're going to come back to the other questions. It's my first Christmas. What is your top tip on taking orders?
Take control is my top tip on taking orders. So don't do the how much would you like to spend? Do the our bouquet start at for a standard, a deluxe, a luxury, and go up from there. Because if you say to a customer, how much do you want to spend? You don't know what they would have spent if you'd taken charge. So, like my bouquets start at £35. That's my standard. And then they go up in £10 increments from there. 9 times
Yeah.
out of 10, people will go for the £45 one, not the £35 one. So,
Yeah. And we would say to the students that you tell the customer the most popular, because everyone likes to
yeah,
be popular. The most popular bouquet is the €50 one or the €60 one, or whatever the case may be.
yeah,
And again, is also having that luxury premium bouquet for maybe £100, €100. If you sell it, happy days. If you don't sell
absolutely.
it, you're not at any loss. But I do think, I remember last year when we were over in America, one of the things that stuck with me is, just because you can't afford it, don't assume other people can't afford it.
Exactly. Yeah. And you don't
You
know
know?
what they're looking for or what their budget is. But I think the more
Yeah.
confident you can be and know your product range, don't fluff it. You've got to rehearse this before you're making those phone calls. And you've got to say, "Look, this is what my range is, this is what I've got, this is the price." So be in charge of
Yeah.
it and make sure you get all of the details. And the one thing that I do say to people, because it's Christmas, is, are there any delivery instructions? Is it difficult to find? What would you like me to do if they're not in? Because you do not want to be going out again on Christmas Eve in the afternoon when you've got your family at home and a turkey to sort to try and deliver one bouquet. So
that's really good advice.
have those things in mind, think, what do I want to do? Do I want to finish at 12 o'clock on Christmas Eve? In which case, this is what we do with anybody who's not in. So, and my advice is tell them that you will leave it with a neighbour and you'll put a card through the door.
Yeah.
Which is, so that you haven't got to
and
go.
And the other thing I would probably advise there is take a photograph of it.
Yeah.
The evidence is there that you did deliver it.
Yeah.
I remember one time my neighbour here, I had a bouquet in my hall for nearly 2 days because every time I went out, I couldn't catch them.
Yeah.
And eventually they obviously knocked then to say, did you get flowers? And they were in my porch, so it is important. How long before Christmas should I start greening up arrangements?
I usually do them. So this year, Christmas is a Wednesday. So my last deliveries will go out on Christmas Eve. I would probably start greening up from the Monday before that, depending on when the deliveries are, because you tend to find people stagger it. But I mean, so long as if you can put it outside somewhere, then it's absolutely fine. So long as it's not going to freeze, then there's no reason why it can't be greened up and outside under your patio table or something like that is fine.
This is it. Well, it's as good there as it is on the bunch.
Absolutely, because sometimes at Christmas storage is the problem. We don't all have oodles of space that we can, spread everything out and keep it where. So if you can use your outside space, I've actually got an IKEA foldable table that sits behind my shed and only ever comes out at Christmas. So I've got more storage space at Christmas outside.
Yeah, great idea. Great idea. Somebody says it's Christmas and I took your advice and recorded everything last year that I bought and I sold, because we will be telling this, keep a record. So anyone that's in our Christmas bloom room, if you're not, we always say keep a record of exactly what you bought, exactly what you sold, how much you sold it for, what didn't sell, what did sell, like literally as much detail. And what she wants to know, should she up her quantities this year than what she sold last year?
A little bit, but not a lot, because you can always reorder from the wholesalers. So I would say up it by 10 to 20% and no more than that, because if you need to do a last minute order, then you need to do a last minute order. It's not a one-stop thing where, if you have one delivery, they're going to go, right, that's you done till New Year. You can't have any more. So, you can always do a top up. And if you're worried about doing a top up because, you've got to hit a minimum, then hit the minimum by using sundries and things that you can put away. So, just order stock that, you can use over the year.
Yeah. Super. Somebody says, I'd lots of leftover fruits last year and she kept them, but they've all gone soft.
Yeah, they do. Sadly, they do absorb moisture from the atmosphere around them. And it's one of the things that I don't think you can keep that successfully. What does work is if you buy some silica packets and you put those in the box. So that's the secret to keeping your fruit. Sometimes when you buy shoes and things like that, you get the little silica packet. Yeah. I'm a little bit weird and I do say, give me that. And that goes in the boxes with my dried fruit, and that does keep it. It does stop them from absorbing the moisture, but that's the only way that I've found to keep it free.
We actually found the ones that we didn't open were actually fine, but the ones that we opened, they definitely went soft. Yeah. So any of them that's not open. So maybe, get the silica bags. Sue's saying that's a great idea, but the keeping them out of your shoes and stuff like that. We have Black Friday coming up, Viv, and what's she saying coming up? How do I market myself without discounting too much?
I don't discount at all. Why would you discount?
Yeah.
We're not multinationals. We're not Currys. We're not Tesco's. Why do we need to join in with Black Friday? No, just no. Don't do that. No.
We had a Zoom on Monday with Denise from Denise Inspired. I don't know if you were in that Zoom, and she was talking about marketing, and she's very much against discounting as well. But what she did say was to maybe add an extra. So she said, like, if they ordered their wreath today, well, they will get the second wreath with a discount off the second wreath. So you're sort of upselling into it.
It's okay to
you'll give a free hanger for the door wreath or something like that. But she's definitely completely against discounting.
Yeah.
And actually, I was just doing our Black Friday offering on for Ed today as well. And I took her advice. I'm like, okay, we're not discounting. We give good value.
Yeah.
We give exceptional service. So we're not discounting, but we'll give them something extra if they book it on Black Friday.
Yeah,
But
and
it
that's
is very hard.
definitely that's the way I'd go. Is upsell, but don't undersell. Don't ever sell yourself short. No.
No, definitely not. And tell me, coming up to the whole marketing of Christmas, what do you find sells best? Do you think it's area to area? And I'm going to ask Sue because I see Sue is in as well. So I'm going to ask Sue the same question. But Viv, for now, what do you think? Forget about wreaths, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so wreaths are obviously everybody now for the graves and for the doors. But after wreaths, what do you think sells best?
I think after wreaths, the things that sell best for me are table arrangements with a candle in, and often the ones that don't have flowers actually. So I do one that's not got flowers in, that's just got, you know, cinnamon sticks, dried oranges, cones, that kind of thing. And then literally the trimmings from my bouquets. So when I do my bouquets, which are also a good seller at Christmas, you know, when you get your spruce and you get the middle stem and you can't use those bits for your wreaths or whatever, well, I keep those. They go back in a bucket and they go in my bouquets because they're long enough. So that's what I use to put in my bouquets because I don't like wasting. I am tight as a tick. So I keep all of those and they go in my bouquets, and I use quite a bit of the strobus to go into my bouquets, and then the bits I have to break off those, they go to another, they go in another side and they go in my table arrangements. So I make those table arrangements for very little and they're always really good sellers. And so I think it's about over Christmas thinking about, I've got this massive piece of spruce, how can I get the best value out of this, because it's expensive, you know. So I try and use everything I can, you know. Oh yeah, planted baskets, Sue. Yeah.
Sue, unmute yourself there, Sue, and tell us what because again, you have a huge amount of retail experience behind you for Christmases. And I know even up to recently, like I know Brett still delivers for flower shops for Christmas. So what do you find for Christmas is the best sellers?
Well, we always used to do really well with planted baskets. And the great thing about them is you can make them up in advance. You can put long-lasting plants in. You can zhuzh them up with some nice Christmassy bits and pieces. People like to order them because they like to send them to their mums and dads, perhaps in their home, or if they're in another part of the country. They'll last in really warm conditions, longer than perhaps flower arrangements will. They don't need quite so much attention. And if you do have any left after Christmas, you just take the Christmas picks out, and then you've still got something to cheer up your display and to sell in the new year. So I would really go for Christmas planted baskets.
Yeah, that's really good advice. That's really good, especially I think for, you know, any new florists coming on the market now that are very unsure of what they could sell. And actually, that's bringing me on to, and I'll ask you, Sue, and then I'll go back to Viv. Christmas markets. And we see a lot of our past students, our past florists, and our present florists doing Christmas markets. What's your best advice? And I'm just thinking the planted baskets would be ideal for them. But go ahead anyway.
Yeah, I think if you're doing a Christmas market, I always think practically about transporting. So I wouldn't have a lot of stuff in water, because if I was at the Christmas market and I wanted to buy something to take it home with me, I wouldn't want to have to worry about it spilling or anything. So things that people can easily transport. So like wreaths are great, planted baskets are great, arrangements in floral foam are great. If you've got some sort of box or something that they can pop them into, but you've got to have something which is transportable, that somebody can think, because what you can put somebody off buying something if they think, well, I love that, but I have nowhere I can get it home. So you need to make something transportable that will be able to survive the journey.
Great advice. Absolutely great advice. And I suppose you could obviously offer delivery service as well. Say, well, look, we can actually deliver this as well. That's great advice, Sue. Thanks a million. Viv, what's your top tips for Christmas markets?
Well, I worked on a market stall for 9 years actually. When I first set up mrsbees, mrsbees was my side hustle, and I actually worked for a nursery and we had market stalls. So I always found that mixed bunches of foliage went really, really well, because people like the idea of that. And often it would have, you know, a bit of laurel just to pad it out a bit of spruce, twigs, that kind of thing. Planted bulbs always went really well. Hyacinths, paper whites, amaryllis, that kind of thing. And then Christmas decorations, actual, if you look on the Dutch wholesalers, they have some amazing Christmas decorations that you can use to zhuzh your stall up a little bit. But again, they're easy. You can put them away for next year if they don't sell. But I think great big bouquets, Sue's right. People don't buy that kind of thing off a market stall. I always used to take a wreath and a table arrangement so I could take orders off those ones. But people tended not to buy those kind of things because I don't know whether you've noticed a lot of Christmas markets are like end of November. It's way too soon. So, all right for your wreaths, but not great for your table arrangements. So take a few bits that people can see what you do, but make the things you've got on your stall, cheap, because people don't spend a lot of money at markets either. They tend to be, very price conscious. And as Sue said, easy to transport because you've got to get them home.
Yeah. That's great. That's great advice. And my little tip of advice would be develop a QR code. So go on to Canva. It's free, it's cheap, it's so easy to do. And make a QR code that either brings you to your website or brings you to your Instagram or your Facebook or whatever. Or if you have an offer to order the wreath, that they can take a photograph, the QR code, and order it when they go home. And probably having a payment service for taking orders. I wouldn't be taking orders without a booking fee or deposit or full payment even. What do you think?
I take full payment at the point of ordering, just the same as I used to in the shop. Yeah,
exactly. If you went into a shop, it'd be exactly the same. And again, we have covered on our Christmas courses and stuff like that, but obviously on our other courses, different payment options. So you have your Stripe, you have your Sum Up, you have Square, all can be used on the mobile, which is great. That as long as you have service. If you don't have service, you're effect. But I don't know what it's like in the UK, but in Ireland, cash is impossible. Like people just don't have cash anymore. Everything is done through tapping the phones.
Right. Yeah. No, I would say half and half. Yeah.
Okay.
I've had 2 orders picked up today, both paid in cash.
Right. Yeah. It's very unusual here. Okay, let me see what other questions I have. I'm going to go into the question box, and Jeanette, can you unmute yourself there and let us know, is there any particular questions that have come up? I know you've been answering a few of them, but just to bring them out for everybody else. Just tap the screen, and then the little over on the bottom, there's a little mic, and just press that mic and it should, there you go. Now,
brilliant,
well done.
Brilliant. Fantastic so far. I have to say, fair play, Viv, and even Sue popping in there. Amazing tips there. And Jen, Bridgerton, what are you eating? You're making me hungry looking at you there. But there's been a good few questions coming in. I'd probably pop through them yourself, Deirdre. I've kind of given my feedback, my response. But again, like everybody looks at this different, and it would be great to get Viv's feedback on some of the questions. One of them was, and I actually couldn't answer it. What's your top tip with the glitter? How, I presume she means, how do you use the glitter? How do you apply it to the items? I actually didn't have an answer myself. The only answer I had was that, what are they called here? The Fundamental Flowers. She's brought out a sustainable glitter, which I thought was brilliant.
Oh,
yeah, you can buy
sustainable. She has. Yeah. What's her name?
Can't think of it.
What's her name, Viv? Evolve Flowers. Helen
Chambers.
Yeah. She's brought out a sustainable glitter, which actually I think we bought one when we were over in Florex just to give it a go. So go back over then. So obviously the spray glitter, Viv, is definitely going down a treat. So go back over again how you do it.
Yeah, so it's 2 parts PVA glue, 2 parts warm water, shake it together in a spray bottle, spray your plant material with that glue mixture, and then you literally just sprinkle your glitter over the top. Now, the glitter I've got is the pearlescent one, and it is in a shaker bottle, but if not, you can use a pepper pot.
Oh, okay, very good. Yeah.
Brilliant.
Oh, great idea. That's a blog, Viv, now to do. To show that on your Instagram. Okay, let me see.
And the other thing, Deirdre, I'd love at the end, if possible, if as many people could turn on their camera and that we could try and get like a group photograph. I just see Nina has a message in there. Is it worth running a win a wreath competition to generate sales? I would say 100%, but again, we'll ask the experts.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really good idea, because it does attract people in. And if you do it with a tag and share, it attracts even more people in.
Yeah.
So
It's
tag
all
your
about
best friend
getting
who'd
in.
love this. Yeah.
It's all about trying to get interaction on your page, build up the reach. I know I was talking to Madeline from Kerry there that has loads of moss. I'll put up her air code so that everybody can get a bus to Kerry later on to get some moss off her. But like she was saying, like she's putting a lot of hard work into her page, building it up. And I was saying, like, you really need to create interaction on your page, putting up a poll. Do you like the pink one or the white one? Do you like this grave wreath or that grave wreath? Do you like the plain one or the glitzy one? I said, it doesn't matter what the answer is. It kind of does, because it's a great way of knowing what your customers are looking for. But at the end of the day, if they just say shit, it doesn't matter. We want interaction. We often put up something and it might cause not major controversy, but people might be having their own little arguments in the comments. And we may not agree or disagree, but we just say, let them at it. It's creating content. It's creating interaction. Facebook doesn't actually read what they're actually saying. And the way Facebook looks at it is, look at all these people interacting with Kate's Flower School page. And that just builds up our reach. I see lots are turning on their cameras. Fair play to you.
Okay, and Madeline, Viv, you might be able to answer this. How much do you reckon roses or whatever is going to go up in price from now to Christmas? What do you think?
I think by Christmas week, you're going to be looking at red roses being around £2 a stem at the very least.
Wow, yeah, that's £2, like as in English pounds,
Yeah.
which transfers probably to about 220, 230 euros.
Yeah.
So just be aware of that. Let me see. Hang on a second. I'm just trying to. What are the restrictions about? I was just about to join Viv. I think the restrictions is around moss. In Ireland, you can forage moss for your own benefit, but you cannot take moss to use it for commercially, if that's what you're talking about, Sam. Leonie, love the mindset, and something I've carried after last year's talk. Jeanette was saying all year round grafting. Oh, hang on, lose it. I don't not be the bargain florist that you attract the right customer. Absolutely. If you put out wreaths for a tenner, that's the customer you're going to attract, and you're not going to be able to sell wreaths for €50 to them. So, but if you put out wreaths for €50, you're going to attract that type of, or arrangements or whatever. Back to, do not assume that they can't afford it. And you want to be attracting the ones it's so much easier to make money out of selling one wreath for €50 than 10 wreaths for, or 5 wreaths for €10.
There's only two ways to make money, and that's volume or price. There's no other way of doing it. So it's whether you want to work your backside off up to Christmas, or whether you're quite happy to do, one for the price of 5.
Deirdre, just for a second, one of the girls, I think in the Christmas group, sent me a message today, and she had purchased by mistake the 20-inch wire rings for mossing up her frames instead of, I normally suggest, a 12-inch, and she was in a bit of a panic, and I was explaining to her, no, you can still use the 20-inch, but place the material directly onto the base rather than allowing it to stick out. But then I said to her, but why not experiment, and why not go out and make a huge big wreath, that way, and put it out there. And one thing that we picked up from Sarah Campbell in an Intrigue Experience over in America, she actually said it last year, and it's something that stuck in my mind. Don't assume, just because you can't afford it, don't assume that the other person can't afford it. What?
You weren't listening. We've already said this.
Oh, you see, I was trying to answer the fucking questions as well. Jamie Mack, I'm double jobbing here.
Yeah. Yeah, no, and we said that earlier on as well. And again, the thing with the luxury wreaths, people are hanging them on their gates.
Yeah.
So use those for that purpose.
And I have a new hall door, so I am going to have the most luxurious, expensive, nobody will be able to afford it. I've been about 2 years waiting on a new hall door, and I got 2 new hall doors. I got a new porch door as well. It eventually arrived today. Watch this space.
The question here is, Viv, what is the maximum number of participants for a wreath workshop?
On your own, 12, I think. And I've got a teaching qualification, so I can't do more than 12. So I'm always a little bit skeptical if people say they can. I could probably do 15 if we had ready-made wreaths. But even that's pushing it, because you always get, somebody who either doesn't get it or just likes having all the attention. If you've got someone that
we
can help you, it's easier to up your numbers. But you know, they're paying for an experience and they're paying for you to teach them, and actually they deserve at least that. They deserve that level of attention. So
I
I'd rather
agree.
do more workshops with less, you know, and keep to the 12.
Yeah, we actually say 10.
Yeah,
We say 10 per person. And we promise when we do Wreath workshops, we promise 10, 1 to
yeah,
10 ratio. What I would say, anyone that isn't a past student of K's or whatever, we do actually have how to run not a Wreath workshop, a workshop, because it covers workshops in general.
yeah.
And we go into a lot of that. We go into the type of customers you get, the grabbers, the needy ones. We go into everything, the pros and cons and everything of. And if you're interested, drop me an email, and if you mention Viv, I'll give you a discount code. This is my first time in 13 years holding Wreath workshops. What advice about quantities and needed for different foliages and decorations would you provide?
I keep it simple. So when I do my wreath workshops, they get 7 different types of foliage. So they'll get spruce, they'll get buried ivy because that grows in my garden and it's mine, so I can use it. And then I put, you know, maybe a bit of pine in, some eucalyptus of some sort, maybe some bay. So 5 to 7 different types of foliage. And then they'll get 3 cones and 3 oranges and 3 cinnamon sticks. And then I have vases with things like peacock feathers, pheasant feathers, different ribbons, those kind of things that they can pick extra from if they choose to. Lots of people actually don't. Lots of
Yeah,
people just go with what they're given. But I think the more you give them, the more they'll use, you know.
yeah, I totally agree. Hang on, I'm just gonna so I'm just trying to mute people down there unmuted. Somebody's saying that they hang their wreaths out of their garden gate, or their garden fence when they're made. We always did well, that's too with the planted baskets. Is it worth running a wreath competition? Absolutely. I think it'd be a great idea. Do you moss grave wreaths, or do you just add foliage straight onto the wreath ring?
I tend to still moss them.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, see, you're old school as well, aren't you,
Yeah,
Viv? Like, you
yeah,
know, and we would be of the same as with the mossing. But the Irish Green guys, they're made straight onto the ring,
yeah.
and
They are.
they're
Although
absolutely,
they're clamped, aren't they? They're clamped
they're
on, and I
clamped.
think that
Yeah.
lifts a bit better. When I first started in Germany, when we used to do graves wreaths, we actually did them on Leylandi bases.
Yes, and we can actually buy them on the
Yeah,
Leylande base from
yeah,
Wicklow Foliage Farm. He sells the Leylande
yeah.
bases, which are great for workshops as well. Let me see. Are artificial wreaths popular? Do most folk prefer fresh?
I don't sell any artificial at all. It's all
No.
fresh.
Do you know what? I actually don't think you can compete with the likes of the
No,
walk around stores and what they're
absolutely.
selling artificial
Yeah,
wreaths for. I think the florists are better off
yeah,
stay away from it. We cannot
yeah.
compete with that.
No, no, we
You know,
can't.
and like I'm not being funny because we were somewhere, Jeanette, where we was at the range or somewhere like that, and they were absolutely stunning artificial wreaths for like £45 or euros, you know, and we
Mm,
couldn't buy the
no,
stuff to make them for
no.
that. So I think steer clear of them.
To
Um,
Deirdre, even with the Halloween wreath, I bought my Halloween wreath in Dunn stores and I brought it on Ryanair over to Lanzarote, and that's what's hanging on the door in Lanzarote at the moment. And it was cheaper for me to buy it in Ireland and transport it over here than even make it myself.
yeah. Yeah, this is it. Sue again agrees with Viv as regards 12 for the workshops, and she recommends pre-cutting the foliage. And I would absolutely say
Yeah,
that too, because if they're not used to scissors, um, if you're not insured, if they're cutting foliage, there's a very good chance that they'll chop their finger if they're not used to it
yeah,
because it's chunky stems that you're cutting.
yeah.
So yeah, I would definitely have it all pre-cut for them. I think, have I any questions that I haven't answered there? And if I have, let me know. Or put up your hand or turn on your camera and ask a question. Look, you have us here now. We have 10 minutes left. We sort of said an hour. We've 10 minutes left. If there's anything that you want to add to it or find out more information on or something that we haven't covered, and we'd love you all to turn on your cameras. So turn on your cameras and we can get a picture. I can only see who one person on the screen, but I'm
I
sure
think
Jeanette must. Can
Sue
you see
wants
everything?
to ask a question.
Well,
Go on.
I was just going to so about what I said about pre-cutting foliage. It wasn't actually to do with people chopping their fingers off. It was to do with how much foliage people use. Because if you pre-cut your foliage, especially the stuff that you buy, which is expensive, that limits how big their wreaths are. Because they can't go bigger than what you've pre-cut. So
Great
what you
tip.
don't want is expensive spruce and somebody to cut like about 2 foot off and then try and do some huge things. So I always say they're a bit like seagulls over chips when it comes to foliage. And I always recommend as well just having some extra in the boot of your car or your van, just in case that, because if it's there, they'll use it. But
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's very
if you
true.
can produce a bit more, if they should use it all. But yeah, that's my recommendation. Pre-cut your foliage.
I remember years ago, Jeanette, you remember our arch workshop? We had an arch workshop. Oh, this is must be 8, 10 years ago. And we had 22 people making arches. So we 22 arches. You can imagine we had a massive big, and we had all the foliage. And of course, we ran out. And my husband and Jeanette's husband had to go to the back of the church to get foliage. So that there was one arch that we literally had it measured down. We were short for about, I'd say, 2/3 of an arch we were short of. But we didn't do too badly for 20 arches. But yeah, you always to have a little bit there just in case.
Deirdre, there is
Any
a
other
few more
questions?
questions coming in the chat there if you
Okay.
want to have a look.
Okay, I'm gonna go in and have a look now and see. Viv, how would you transport your bud vases?
So I actually use the wine carriers from Sainsbury's. And then they are handed over as 2 separate vases at the door. So in the car, they're in the wine carriers wrapped in tissue, and then we
Very
just take
clever.
them out and hand them their 2 vases at the door.
Very clever. What pots would you use for your candle arrangements? I'm after losing that one. A second. They're jumping all over the place on me. What pots would you use for candle arrangements and where from, please?
I actually bulk buy terracotta pots. So
Okay.
just actually my local garden centre get them for me. So I use terracotta garden pots, and then last year I also had some little footed metal pots. But if you look at any of the wholesalers, they'll have a range of concrete pots and metal ones, and the little zinc buckets are quite nice as well.
Yeah.
To
And
do
again, we
Christmas arrangements in.
IKEA to have great
Yeah.
pots over here. I don't know if you have Lidl and Aldi, but like the other day
Yeah.
I was in Lidl and they had pots for 90 cents and they were a nice size pot. You know, for like one candle arrangement, they were a nice size pot. So
And at the
so yeah,
minute,
keep
Oasis have actually got a sale on of Christmas type pots on their website. So I bought some the other week that have got little Christmas gonks on, like little elf type things, and I think
okay.
they were about 70p.
Excellent. And what size terracotta pots, Gemma wants to know?
Well, it depends really on what size arrangement I'm doing, because some people want a chunkier one, but I would guess probably a 7-inch pot is enough for a small
Yeah.
one, and then go up from there.
Somebody's asking about the moss damaging the door, and I know you have a disclaimer, so you can talk about that.
Yeah, if you're in the Geek group, there is actually a disclaimer in the files section which you can download. And tomorrow on my to-do list is a candle safety one, because if you send out something with a candle that can be lit, you really ought to have a candle safety notice on it as well. And I just paste them onto luggage labels and attach them. So yeah, I just, it does say, this wreath is made with moss and foliages and may transfer onto your door.
Yeah.
No responsibility is taken for that. So,
In all our years, we've never, and like we have a bit like yourself, hundreds and hundreds of wreaths, there has never been an issue. I was at a friend's wreath class and the lady next to me was so greedy and didn't know I was a friend. She turned around and said, I think I've got my money's worth. Yeah, but you know what? My husband's a bit like that on the cruise ships. So he said he gets his money's worth, but there is always one, and we call them the grabber. The grabber is always there, and they will literally and that's why we use kits. So everybody, so it's not a case of everything is just on the table that one person gets everything. all our wreath workshops are made up in a kit, and
Yeah,
there's plenty in the
unfortunately.
kit, and there's always extra in it, and but and as I said, they don't always use it, but the grabber will go home with it. Susan says she has to go. Thanks, Amelia, for all the knowledge. Thanks for the thing. I'm a geek. Dawn says she's a geek, so she's over into the geek group. Donnie, you'll get the disclaimer for the wreaths.
Yeah.
Listen, guys, Jesus, we've really covered a huge amount today.
Yeah.
I do hope you have got some benefit from it, and that you've learned something or that has helped you along the way. Obviously, we're in the Floristry Geek. If you want to go over and you can ask any questions over there, Viv and everybody that's there is very good with their knowledge to put it out. Let me see, just checking now. So much information.
Deirdre, one
Thanks a million.
person, Sam, is asking about Viv's classes. She wants to join up with Viv's classes. Where about in the UK is she?
Okay, so Viv, just about your mentoring, give us a little bit about that.
No, her wreath making
My
class.
wreath making classes.
Oh,
I'm in
her wreath
Stamford
making
in
classes.
Lincolnshire.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm in Stamford in Lincolnshire, which is about 15 miles away from Peterborough.
Okay, so there you go. And Viv also does mentoring. So any of you that are florists, particularly around the wedding industry side of it, but obviously, I know you've helped out a lot of retail florists or people that are starting out just not sure of direction and what to go. And
Yeah.
you can book Viv for mentoring sessions. Contact her over in the Floristry Geek group. We have got the most amazing feedback, and I see there is a few of them, Danielle and whatever that's there in the here tonight, have used Viv for her mentoring, and she's absolutely amazing. Sue
Oh,
Whale, for
thanks,
those of you
Maeve.
that don't
Yeah, there's some
Sue
fabulous
Whale says,
messages coming in there. Everyone is
Oh.
thanking Viv there for the class tonight. Everyone the feedback seems to be great. Really, really appreciate the support, everyone.
Oh,
well,
bless.
guys, what we would love you to do is, did we get the photograph, Jeanette, with the cameras on? Is if you go over to the Flurry Fun group and maybe just put a little review over there for Viv in our Flurry Fun group, and tell them how, if you found the Zoom benefit, the webinar of benefit, would you like more of them? Is this sort of something that you would like more of? I know we had Denise on Monday. We have them. We normally have these coming up to Christmas anyway, and we keep them for our Christmas bloom rooms. But this year we decided, you know what, it's going to be a tough Christmas for a lot of people. So let's just put it out there and let's just try and support and help everybody as much as we possibly can. So, and like I can see, there's a lot of people here that are not past students of Case Flower School. So you're most welcome. You've probably come over from the Geek group as well. And if you haven't, go over and join the Geeks. And and our Flurry Fun group, you can go over it. Our Flurry Fun group is a flower group for everybody. So you don't have to be a florist. You don't have to be. We don't give feedback. We don't give advice. It's for people that love flowers, and everybody can post. It's completely different to Viv's group. If you're looking for feedback and you're looking for critique, you can post it in the Geek group. If you're looking for everyone to tell you that it's absolutely wonderful and gorgeous, you post it in the Flurry Fun group.
Deirdre, somebody's just asking about getting the replay of the video. Just explain that you'll send the link out.
Okay, so yes, I will. It'll probably be Monday before I get around to doing it. But everybody that has been signed up for this, and I think there was actually about 220 people had signed up for this webinar. I know we've only had, which is about normal. You normally get about a fifth of who signed up that actually come on the webinar. Somebody's looking to get in. Anyone that is signed up will get an email with the replay on it. I will have it done probably on Saturday or Sunday. I'll see how I get on over the weekend. Any other questions there, Jeanette?
No, I think that's everything. I think I've kind of answered any of them that I can answer.
But again, as I said, stick them over into the Flurry Fun group or up in the Floristry Geek. Guys, have a fabulous Christmas. Have a really busy Christmas. I hope it's a really successful one for you. Take notes. Have your diary. Have your book there and write everything down. Write down how to mix the PVA glue. Write down how many cones is in a bag, 530. Write down how many you got out of your bunch of spruce from Flower Vision or the Irish Green Guys or wherever you've bought your stuff. Keep your notes on, because what you use and where you buy it is really, really important for next year. Really important. And the other thing is after Christmas, and we do this all the time, make a note of what you have left in that diary, your Christmas diary. Make a note of what you have left, so next year you're not overbuying again. Viv, I'm going to give you the last word.
I hope that your tills are ringing this Christmas. I really do. I think it's going to be a tough one, if I'm honest. And I've been doing this a long time. And even I've thought this year I've got to adjust my offering because I think people are a little bit nervous. I also think it's going to be a last minute Annie kind of Christmas because I think when people are a little bit nervous about how much money they've got to spend, they then find the week before Christmas they've done it all and they've got a bit left over, and that's when your phone will start ringing. But you know what they say, if you don't show them what you've got, you can't sell it. So make sure your web shop's up to date with plenty of offerings, lots of choice, and yeah, have a great one, girls and boys.
Oh, and boys. Yeah, we have a few boys in there as well. Listen, guys, thanks a million. We really appreciate you staying for the length of time that you did stay. An hour is a long time on a Friday night. I'm on the tea, but I think I'm going to go on the wine now very shortly. Viv is already on the gin.
I'm already on the gin. Yeah.
It's Friday night. Absolutely, it's wine time. Guys, thanks a million, and we will see you all again. And we will be organising our own Case Flower School webinar with showing you some funky things. We have funky ideas. We just haven't set the date yet, but we will be setting the date on that soon, and we'll let you know all about it. Take care. Have a good one. Bye.
Bye.